Contrary to popular belief, Darwinian evolution and atheism, naturalism in general, are built entirely upon a foundation of quicksand that quickly engulfs our conception of reality itself into a quagmire of illusions and fantasy. First off, in regards to Darwinian evolution, atheists hold that the design we see pervasively throughout life is merely an illusion, merely an appearance of design. Richard Dawkins puts the situation like this: yet the living results of natural selection overwhelmingly impress us with the appearance of design, as if by a master watchmaker, impress us with the illusion of design and planning. Richard Dawkins is far from the only prominent atheist who seems to be afflicted with this mental illness of seeing the illusion of design pervasively throughout life. The well-known atheist Francis Crick, co-discoverer of DNA, seems to have been particularly haunted by this illusion of seeing the appearance of design everywhere he looked in biology. He states, biologists must constantly keep in mind that what they see was not design, but rather evolved. Elsewhere he states, organisms appear as if they have been designed to perform in an astonishingly efficient way, and the human mind therefore finds it hard to accept that there need be no designer to achieve this. Yet, despite the fact that, according to many leading atheists themselves, life gives the overwhelming appearance of having been designed for a purpose, all the purported scientific evidence that is supposed to demonstrate for us how this overwhelming appearance of design in life came to be turns out itself to be illusory. Franklin M. Harold, whom I believe is also an atheist, calls Darwinian accounts a variety of wishful speculations. Specifically, he states, we must concede that there are presently no detailed Darwinian accounts of the evolution of any biochemical or cellular system, only a variety of wishful speculations. In fact, one of the main themes of many of Michael Behe's talks is that all grand Darwinian claims rest on undisciplined imagination. Thus, since atheists themselves are self-admittedly seeing the illusion of design in life, and yet they have no experimental evidence whatsoever that unguided material processes can produce this illusion of design that they themselves are seeing, then of course the design advocate would be well justified in saying that this illusion of design that they themselves are seeing in life is not an illusion after all, but the design that they see is indeed real. In fact, I hold that they are naturally detecting design because of the inherent image of God that they have within themselves. Moreover, this illusory nature inherent to the evidence of atheistic naturalism gets even worse for the atheists, much worse. For instance, although reliable observation of reality is a necessary cornerstone of the scientific method itself, the reductive materialistic foundation that Darwinian evolution rests upon undermines this necessary cornerstone of science. That is to say, given materialistic, atheistic premises, not only are our personal beliefs about reality held to be somewhat flawed, but even our perceptions of reality itself are held to be untrustworthy and thus illusory given the materialistic premises of atheism. Richard Dawkins puts the awkward situation for atheism like this. Since we are creatures of natural selection, we cannot totally trust our senses. Evolution only passes on traits that help a species survive and are not concerned with preserving traits that tell a species what is actually true about life. In the following video, Donald Hoffman has, through many computer simulations, clearly illustrated the self-defeating nature of the naturalistic worldview in regards to undermining the reliability of our observations of reality.
So this raises an important technical question. Does natural selection really favor seeing reality as it is? Fortunately, we don't have to wave our hands and guess. Evolution is a mathematically precise theory. We can use the equations of evolution to check this out. We can have various organisms or artificial worlds compete and see which survive and which thrive, which sensory systems are more fit. A key notion in those equations is fitness. Consider this steak. What does this steak do for the fitness of an animal? Well, for a hungry lion looking to eat, it enhances fitness. For a well-fed lion looking to mate, it doesn't enhance fitness. And for a rabbit in any state, it doesn't enhance fitness. So fitness does depend on reality as it is, yes, but also on the organism, its state, and its action. Fitness is not the same thing as reality as it is, and it's fitness and not reality as it is that figures centrally in the equations of evolution. So in my lab, we have run hundreds of thousands of evolutionary game simulations with lots of different randomly chosen worlds and organisms that compete for resources in those worlds. Some of the organisms see all of the reality, others see just part of the reality, and some see none of the reality, only fitness. Who wins? Well, I hate to break it to you, but perception of reality goes extinct. In almost every simulation, organisms that see none of reality but are just tuned to fitness drive to extinction all the organisms that perceive reality as it is. So the bottom line is evolution does not favor vertical or accurate perceptions. Those perceptions of reality go extinct. Now this is a bit stunning. How can it be that not seeing the world accurately gives us a survival advantage? That is a bit counterintuitive.
Thus, in what should be needless to say, a worldview that undermines the scientific method itself by holding all our observations of reality are illusory is not a worldview that can firmly ground the scientific method.
A major way to test any worldview, philosophy, or theory is to ask, is it logically consistent? Is it internally coherent? And that means that you have to take that worldview and what does it say about the nature of truth or knowledge? In other words, what's its epistemology? And then apply it to itself. It has to fit its own standards. For example, there's a theory called evolutionary epistemology. It's a naturalistic approach that applies evolution to the theory of knowledge. And it proposes that the human mind is a product of natural selection so that the ideas in our minds are not selected for their truth value, but for their survival value. In other words, we human beings in the process of evolution picked up certain ideas because they helped us to master the environment and survive better. Fine, what if we apply that theory to itself? Well, then it was selected not for its truth value, but for its survival value, which discredits its own claim. There's one apologist named Greg Kokel who says this is how a theory commits suicide. When it takes its own standard of truth and applies it to itself, it discredits itself. It shoots itself in the foot. It slits its own throat. It discredits its own views. So it's amazing to me that there are many leading thinkers who have actually embraced that theory without detecting the way it commits suicide. There's a philosopher named John Gray, British philosopher, who once said, and listen to this quote and see if you can detect the contradiction. He said, if Darwin's theory of natural selection is true, then the human mind serves evolutionary success, not truth. It's astonishing to me that he doesn't catch that. In other words, he said, if Darwin's theory is true, then it's not true. This is kind of like the liar's paradox. This statement is a lie. If the statement is true, then as it says, it's not true. It's a lie. And so this is one of the standard tools in any philosophical toolbox for testing ideas. The technical term for it is self-referential absurdity, meaning that when it applies its own definition of truth to itself, it undercuts itself.
Moreover, completely contrary to materialistic premises, conscious observation, far from being illusory, is experimentally found to be far more integral to reality, far more reliable than materialism had ever predicted. In the following experiment, which you can read at your leisure, it was found that reality doesn't exist without an observer. Apparently, science itself could care less if atheists believe their observations of reality are illusory. Moreover, as Nancy Pearcey alludes to in this article entitled Why Evolutionary Theory Cannot Survive Itself, not only are our observations of reality held to be illusory, but even our sense of self, the belief that we really exist as real persons, which is the most sure thing we can know about reality, becomes illusory too. Thus, in what I consider to be a shining example of poetic justice, in their claim that God does not really exist as a real person, but is merely an illusion, the atheist also ends up claiming that he himself is not really a real person, but is merely an illusion. Francis Crick states it like this, that your joys and your sorrows, your memories and your ambitions, your sense of personal identity and free will are in fact no more than the behavior of a vast assembly of nerve cells and their associated molecules. As Lewis Carroll's Alice might have phrased it, you are nothing but a pack of neurons. This hypothesis is so alien to the ideas of most people today that it can truly be called astonishing. And Matthew Lieberman, who is a UCLA professor, neuroscientist, and a materialist, states, we have so much confidence in our materialist assumptions, which are assumptions, not facts, that something like free will is denied in principle. Maybe it doesn't exist, but I don't really know that. Either way, it doesn't matter, because if free will and consciousness are just illusion, they are the most seamless illusions ever created. Filmmaker James Cameron wishes he had special effects that good. Thus, given materialistic premises, people become illusions whose observations of reality are illusory. And why in blue blazes should anyone trust what illusions, having illusions, say about reality? Finally, this unconstrained illusory nature inherent to the atheistic worldview becomes even more acute when atheists try to explain the origin and the sustaining of the universe. In other words, when they try to explain the origin, fine-tuning, and quantum wave collapse of the universe. That is to say, every time an atheist postulates a random infinity to try to get around the glaringly obvious theistic implications of the Big Bang, fine-tuning, and the quantum wave collapse of the universe, then the math surrounding that random infinity tells us that everything that is possible has a 100% chance of existing somewhere in that random infinity of possibilities that the atheist had postulated. Even an infinite number of Richard Dawkins riding on an infinite number of pink unicorns exists somewhere in their random infinity they had postulated. Since that absurdity is epistemologically self-defeating, then the atheistic worldview is falsified as a coherent theory of knowledge. Falsified as a coherent theory of knowledge, scientific or otherwise. Thus, to conclude, basically, without God, everything within the atheistic naturalistic worldview, sense of self, observation of reality, even reality itself, collapses into self-refuting, unrestrained flights of fantasy and imagination.